van dit zomerseizoen wordt de film Raiders of the Lost Ark, die volgende maand in première gaat. Een spectaculair filmavontuur geregisseerd door Steven Spielberg, maker onder andere van Jaws, Close Encounters in 1941. Links na Spielberg zit u George Lucas, de man achter Star Wars en The Empire Strikes Back. Hij schreef het verhaal van Raiders, hij produceerde en monteerde het. Het verhaal speelt zich af in 1936. Volgens bijbelse overlevering bevinden stukken van de stenen tafelen van de 10 geboden zich in een ark in de buurt van Caïro. Degene die de ark in bezit krijgt, zou over mystieke krachten beschikken die een magische macht geven over zijn medemensen. Vandaar dat Hitler een speciaal commandokorps inzet om de ark te bemachtigen.
In the business, every stunt you do isn't a death-defying act. And contrary to what a lot of people think about stuntmen, they're not crazy. And it's more of an exact science than a lot of people think. It's become somewhat of an art form, really. And with the competition as it exists today between stuntmen and between production companies to get spectacular action, your adrenaline's pumping all the time. But maybe 10, 12 times a year, you're looking at something that could really catch a hold of you, and I mean hurt you bad. And if you're doing big numbers throughout the course of the year, through your career, you're going to get hurt.
I did a thing on a movie called The Legend of the Lone Ranger with a stagecoach and 6 head of horses. Didn't come out as good as we liked. Coach ran over both my legs. Lucky it didn't break them. It just got a lot of tendons and muscles, and they sewed them back together, and I guess I healed pretty quick.
It was a close call for Terry on a stunt that originated in 1939 in Stagecoach. Playing the Indian in this classic Western that brought John Wayne starting was a former rodeo champion, Yakima Canutt. With this unique, daring stunt, he emerged as a star in his own field. That same year, he'd take the stunning action a step further when doubling for the hero in Zorro's Fighting Legion. Not only would he go under the horses and carriage, but he'd do a backflip and climb back onto the stagecoach. For his innovative action ideas and the safety rigs to go with them, Yakima Canutt is regarded by modern movie stuntmen as the man who wrote the book. In Raiders, horses would be replaced by a 5-ton truck, a stunt first.
Independent movement to get a really good hit, as opposed to a mount.
Director Steven Spielberg designed the chase scene. Then, with the help of second unit director Mickey Moore and Glenn Randall, stunt coordinator, they set out to put it on film. The basic challenge facing them, how to maximize the visual effect and minimize the risk to the stuntman, Terry Leonard.
At various times, I'm not trying to make it sound like every time you go out, you're staring a Grim Reaper in the face. That's wrong.
But that, you never anticipate that. You try and work out everything where you have an escape route, and you never look at it as designing a stunt to hurt. It's like a football play. You design to score.
While Terry sounds positive, no one's forgotten the Lone Ranger mishap. The morning of the major stunt, Glenn Randall makes sure the road is ready, the company on its toes. Terry crawls under for one final look-see. He'll need more clearance. A trench is dug for him.
Flip back into it, but I don't trust it.
Glenn and Terry have made a lot of pictures together over the years. There's an unspoken code between them. In this case, it was understood Terry would do the stunt only if Glenn drove. The time has come to roll cameras. Check and double-check all equipment and signals.
Stand by, this is picture. Ready, sir? Right. Okay, turn it on and roll cameras.
The heart of the stunt, or gag as the pros call it. This truck has been built from scratch, especially for the picture. 3 days would be spent filming just this section of the chase sequence.
Right, keep on it. Yeah. Right, keep on it. Go in, now back off. All right. Now, let's follow it down. Slow it down a bit.
Going under the truck, all 6 seconds of it looked dangerous. And it was.
The adrenaline rush, it's a high. Like, I mean, I'm not into drugs or anything, but when people talk about a high, when you do stunts, you get a natural high that I guarantee you nobody in the world can match. It's like driving race cars or anything. It's like going onto a football field before a big game. You know, you're pumped.
For Terry, it's time now to unwind. The other Indiana Jones, the one who's been hired to act, pads up and gets ready for some close-ups of being dragged behind the truck.
I'm sure it's not dangerous. See, if it was dangerous, they would have waited till we got more of the movie done before the credits. There's several talking things to do yet, and they wouldn't. I think they're pretty sure my mouth will survive. That's when you really have to start worrying. When you still got stunts to do after you've done all the talking.
You think you'll get your head up? Well, not being used to being dragged about.
I will if I know that, otherwise I won't know it's me.
You bet.
You ready, Gary? All right. Let's roll cameras. Me. Tap. Speed? Okay, yeah. Pick it right up now. Pick it right up now. Faster. Pick it up, Dave.
In an action picture, certainly on Raiders, the actor and his stunt double work closely together for most of the production. The final result of our combined efforts should make it difficult for even our best friends to tell us apart. The truck chase. More than 50 stunts, requiring 13 stuntmen, each hitting his mark perfectly. No mistakes, no injuries. It took 5 weeks of long, tough filming for 6 minutes of final screen time. Gritty action in Raiders. But you have to remember, it's only make-believe. Once again, Indiana Jones is running for his life and escaping by the skin of his teeth. Throughout his adventures across 3 continents, he'll have to outwit the bad guys in countless cliffhanger situations like this one. The storyline of Raiders is simple. The action suspenseful but lighthearted. The hero is in constant jeopardy in scenes inspired by many movies of the past. Inspired by many of them, but a copy of none. Setting out to recall the past is one thing. Making it live anew, another. Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, joined forces with George Lucas, creator of Star Wars, to attempt a kind of entertainment neither had made before. The producers will readily admit the film owes much to the thrill-a-minute matinee serials and B-movies of the 40s and 50s. Which brings us to our heroine, Marion Ravenwood.
Take your lousy hands off!
Played by Karen Allen. Feisty, confident. There's no getting around the fact she's still a damsel in distress.
Wait. Well, I can be reasonable.
That time is past.
You don't need that. Wait. I'll tell you everything.
Yes, I know you will.
In 2 minutes, those spears will touch. When they do, you die.
Damsels in distress, a staple of the cliffhanger. This tense scene from G-Men versus the Black Dragon kept audiences on the edge of their seats during a Saturday matinee in 1945. Could the brave G-Men overpower the enemy and save the helpless heroine? You had to come back in a week to find out. Another diabolical scare tactic. Another lady in dire need of help. This time, it's Federal Operator 99 to the rescue. The suspense mounts, even though we know she'll be okay. After all, it's only Chapter 4. There are still 8 more to come. The dreaded power saw. It could always be counted on to send shivers up the spine. So naturally, this kind of jeopardy was a must for just about every serial. Fortunately, we never had to witness what certainly would be an unpleasant sight if the lady and Saw were to meet. At the last moment, somehow, someone or something would spare us.
I'll tell you everything.
Now back to Marion. How in heaven's name can she get out of this mess?
Let her go.
Cut. Lovely.
In some respects, making an action picture today is easier than in the past. Fire scenes, for instance. New chemical retardants on the stuntman's costume make this effect much less dangerous. On the other hand, fistfights have to be staged and rehearsed step by step as they've always been.
You just duck down and come back.
Working with our stunt coordinator, Glenn Randall, Steven Spielberg and I would carefully choreograph each move.
Right. That's what I was looking for.
When he goes that crunch,
Can we determine,
right there.
fellas, can we determine at what time I'm going to start aiming for the head and what time I'm going to stop it on the movement? Let's
No, you're doing it from the head.
all the time. So the next time I do it, I'm aiming for your head.
Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Aim for the head, but miss. Close timing. It requires a lot of rehearsal. Now, as soon as the breakaway props receive their final scoring, we're ready to shoot.
Okay, keep quiet now. We're going to turn and then light. Get out of there. Terry, hang on. Right, get out of it, boys. Okay, Terry, I think I'm ready.
The fight scenes in the Raven Bar took nearly 2 weeks to film. More time than was spent making an entire B-Quickie in the old days. Recently, Terry Leonard and I visited Glenn at his California ranch. We talked about the various hazards a stuntman faces on the job.
Right there. Or it wouldn't work, right?
They talk about all the dangers stuntmen go through, wrecking cars and airplanes, but I think Terry would agree with me. The stunt that gets more people hurt in this industry is a simple fight routine. Because when you throw a punch, you're throwing it with all the force that you would throw to hit somebody, but yet you're missing them by inches. There's a lot of stuntmen that just cringe when they find out that they have to do a fight with an actor that's not had a great deal of experience doing them, only because 9 times out of 10 they're going to get hit some way, someplace. Okay, first move, boom, lock, boom.
Thanks mainly to Glenn's coaching and imaginative choreography, this actor never once hit a stuntman during any of the elaborate fight scenes.
Here, so that when he swings...
The challenge for Glenn, me, and director Spielberg is to make each of the fights look real, authentic. To accomplish this, the placement of the camera is all important.
The thing that we're talking about is that if the camera's over there, for instance, that I don't have to just miss him. I can miss him by a foot, right?
You always have to work your fights to the angle of the camera, so that, say, well, throw a punch here.
Throw a punch there.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
now, if the camera's right there, they're going to see a 6-inch gap there.
6 inches here.
Right,
Yeah.
see.
No way
So now,
he can make it look.
So now, if you wanted to make a direct hit, you just turn his body a little bit and throw the punch here at the same distance. If the camera's at this angle, it's going to look like it tore his head
So
off.
all I have to do is throw right there.
Yeah,
I got
you
you right
put a
here.
little punch.
I can. How far out do I have to be? But if the camera were here, it would be. So if I'm back here and it goes like that, the one who's selling it is him. I don't have to be anywhere near him.
One of the difficulties with choreographing a fight with as many people as we had in the bazaar is that you've got 15, 25 moves. Everybody has to be in the right position at the right time.
Each move was like a line of dialogue. It had to be memorized and delivered as rehearsed. The bullwhip, the colorful calling card of Indiana Jones. To master the use of this lethal weapon, I practiced on my own time, not for art so much as for self-preservation. After weeks of self-inflicted punishment, I finally was ready to turn it against others. A prerogative of the stunt coordinator is to pick some stunts to do himself. Glenn will attempt to flip the truck over onto its roof. The stunt hadn't been done before with a vehicle of this enormous weight.
Take what we call calculated risk. This is a calculated risk.
To effect the flip, a section of telephone pole would be fired out of the bottom by powerful explosives. Glenn would both drive and detonate the charge.
It's going to do this, I think. It's going to be here, and it's going to go pow, boom.
On his roof.
If the truck should go leave the ground and then pitch on its roof, Glenn is protected by this roll cage.
Despite the potential danger in this gag, Glenn claimed it for himself, as he explains.
Well, I've been doing stunts for about 18 years as a performing stuntman. It's very difficult at this stage of my career to just point my finger and ask somebody else to do it. So I still enjoy doing stunts, so I will perform.
It's taken several hours to rig for this shot. Multiple cameras, some remote control, will cover the brief but tricky action.
Great, beautiful. Just lovely.
It's not the sensational effect Glenn was looking for. A perfectionist, he'd like another take. But Steven Spielberg is more than pleased.
We got it. You know what? It's realistic. You know what I'm saying? It's realistic. It looks like it went up in the embankment, lost control, and rolled over. It's very real. That's the way it should be.
They never usually do what you want them to do. I was hoping for a little bit more spectacular fall.
But in the finished film, we see the director was right. The first and only take works just fine. by the combined efforts of the stunt and special effects departments, we've seen the last of our specially built 5-ton truck. Arab Legion ambushes enemy. Just a few words in the script for Lion of the Desert would be transformed into this incredibly realistic action sequence. Glenn Randall was stunt coordinator on this film before tackling raiders. It took him 6 months to prepare the elements of this complex battle scene. These involved action scenes are comprised of many different individual stunts.
What are you going to do now?
We're trying to create an illusion that the horse was either shot or knocked down by whatever happens to knock him down.
The horse can fall that way?
Well, the key on the horse is you pull his right rein. They've all been schooled to lay down on the left side. Most stuntmen are right-handed and have more strength in the right hand.
Glenn and Terry Leonard demonstrate the bulldog. In this basic stunt, Terry will jump and knock Glenn and the horse to the ground. Glenn's favorite trained horse, Rocket, will fall on cue, then quickly get to his feet again, unhurt. For some viewers, horse falls, a staple of action pictures, appear cruel and harmful. In the United States, however, strict laws protecting movie horses have been enforced for decades. And stunt coordinators like Glenn have a vested economic interest as well as an emotional one in their animals' well-being. Of course, the coordinator is also responsible for people.
You're kind of a safety valve for the entire company. You design things so people don't get hurt. Stuntmen don't have the advantage of having hindsight. You better be right to begin with, or there's hell to pay, big consequences to pay. So you're looking at all aspects of it, from the design of the wardrobe so the man can move properly in it, to the vehicles that he's using, to the safety devices and equipment that you incorporate into your show.
Because of new safety techniques, spectacular high falls like this one in Hooper are now possible. A stuntman needs a keen sense of timing, great physical coordination, and let's face it, guts. Give him a gag with a motorcycle and see what happens. Finally, give a stuntman something with 4 wheels, and you really want to run for cover.
Almost every stunt that's done today, you could look back in past films and say, well, they did something very similar to that or just exactly like it. But to come up with something that has never been done is really a feather in any stuntman's cap. We tried something online in the desert that, to my knowledge, had not been done, and that was to put a cannon in the back of a vehicle and blow it end over end. To my knowledge, I don't think any vehicle had ever really been blown end over end. So we attempted it with some armored cars and pulled it off very successfully.
Well, I'd never do a stunt. I would never find myself in a position to do a stunt. I wouldn't call anything that I did in Raiders really a stunt. I'd call it physical acting.
Wow.
You know, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
I mean, you'd have to.
You've got a disadvantage. A stuntman, before he goes into a situation, he could scream and holler and cuss and do whatever he has to do, where you have to stay in character. So when you see yourself just about ready to hit the wall and you're not supposed to hit the wall, you still have to stay in character.
That's right.
So I could cry.
You know, the big I'll tell you another thing is that one of the big difference is that you got to act all the way through it.
That's right.
And it takes twice as much energy as if you're just doing the physical part of it.
With his world actually crashing down around him, Buster Keaton made it look so easy. Like Keaton, many stars of the silent era not only did physical acting, but also their own stunts. The popular comedian from England, Monty Banks, made numerous two-reelers filled with truly death-defying predicaments. Stuntmen hadn't come into their own as yet, and besides, producers reasoned, why pay for another player? The great Lillian Gish, of course, didn't have to go on the ice, but she wanted authenticity in her films. As for the irrepressible Douglas Fairbanks, well, seldom if ever would a double be found on his set. Rightfully proud of his athletic prowess, he'd charmingly convince his fans and himself that he was the Black Pirate, the thief of Baghdad, Zorro. Indiana Jones isn't quite as flamboyant as a Fairbanks character, but in the struggle for good over evil, they share common bonds. Perpetual underdogs, they're blessed with superior wit and a lot of luck. There's another tradition from action films of yore to which Raiders pays homage. No matter how much Indiana gives or takes in a fight, he never loses his hat. Years ago, with short shooting schedules, no one could bother trying to match action filmed the day before. It was just simpler for everyone if the hero kept his hat on in every shot. It also handily covered the double space in stunts. Looks like Marion and Indiana are in big trouble again. All they wanted to do was hijack the Nazis' plane. Now it's accidentally started moving. A tanker of gasoline is beginning to flood the field. Enemy troops are attacking, and Marion's trapped in the cockpit. Can Indiana get her out in time? Can they get away before they're incinerated? It's a cliffhanger, all right, but you won't have to wait till next week to find out what happened. While certain elements in Raiders were borrowed from serials, some, like dialogue and staging, had to be left behind.
You know me? The next time it'll be in here unless you tell me where you're going.
Hampered by low budgets, the filmmakers could only try their best. Exciting action outlined in the script was seldom very convincing when it reached film. But of course, the kids at matinees weren't too critical. A common practice of producers was to make sure a set could be used over and over again. On Monday, it could be a forest ranger's office for one serial. Redress it Wednesday, and we're in North Africa for a chapter of another. Fortunately, Raiders could afford to realize what the scriptwriter imagined. This set fills an entire soundstage. It never will be used again. since most of it will be demolished in the film. Doubling for me in this sequence is Irish stuntman Martin Grace. His main gag will involve one of the 30-foot-high idols. Steven Spielberg had virtually every shot of the film storyboarded. For the upcoming complex, expensive scene, the preparation was especially important.
Carefully!
Indiana and his friend Sala have finally located the buried Egyptian temple, known as the Well of Souls. The long-sought-after Ark of the Covenant is down there, but so also are things that nightmares are made of.
Why does the floor move?
Give me your torch.
Why did it have to be snakes?
We gotta get Robert down here. We don't have enough snakes to make the scene work. It's just the set's too big for the amount of snakes that we have. And we hardly have enough small snakes for even an insert. Literally 2,000 snakes in the set are swallowed up so quickly. We have to get more snakes. You know what we really need? We need about 7,000 snakes in addition to the 2,000 we have here to make it work.
Some of the snakes were poisonous. All could bite. A doctor stood by at all times with anti-venom serum. At first, most of the crew were a bit spooked, to say the least. 2 weeks filming with thousands of snakes. Yet remarkably, within a few days, the crew seemed not to mind them. Somehow they got to know which were the dangerous ones and which were the harmless ones. None, however, took direction well.
You don't like fire? You do like fire. You love fire. In the script, you're supposed to hate fire. Why do you like fire? You're ruining my movie. You are.
Are you scared of snakes?
I hate them.
Are you really? How about you?
I had a phobia of snakes.
They don't bother me at all. When I was a kid, I worked in a Boy Scout camp as a nature counselor. We used to collect them, you know, run and catch every snake we could. And I had no fear of them whatsoever. I'm surprised. I mean, when I go around talking about the picture, doing publicity and stuff, I am amazed at the number of people that's the most frightening thing in the picture to them are the snakes. And they say, how can you stand to work with all those snakes?
Since they didn't bother me, I didn't mind doing the first scene with them. I'd have to rappel off the statue 40 feet to the ground. A bit physical, but not requiring a stuntman.
Steven, I'll come down in a second. Okay, as soon as he comes up, I'm coming down. See where he is when he's supposed to. And we'll do it the real way. We're all set now. You know,
Steadily, steadily, steadily. Whoa! Now, whoa. Carefully, carefully. You're right in there. Good. Now, gently, boys, gently, gently. Good.
snakes jump back at the same time Indy jumps back, and we do a long push in.
The moment of triumph is at hand for Indiana. At long last, the Ark of the Covenant is about to be his.
Don't touch that.
Indiana has foiled the Nazis before, but now it's their turn.
Come on down here, I'll show you. Thank you,
They'll take the Ark away from him. They plan to bury him alive, along with Marion.
What was briefly yours is now mine.
Stop it!
Into yet another tense cliffhanger. How the heck can Indiana save Marion this time?
If she falls, she goes into the snakes. But that shouldn't bother her because the fall will kill her.
I'm going to get some mustard now.
Ben's really killing you, huh, Harrison?
It's stuntwoman Wendy Leach doubling Karen Allen for these perilous shots.
Traitor, you get your hands off of me!
Karen never did get to enjoy the company of reptiles.
Harrison in his big boots and his gloves and his pants and his leather clothes and stuff, and I had this little sort of thing and naked arms and nothing on my legs and bare feet and couldn't stand them on my feet.
Next, the major stunt of the entire temple sequence.
Hi, good morning, Martin. How are you? Good day for you.
Martin Grace is to ride the statue down when it topples.
Pete is just rocking it back and forth, and the arm drops off. I'd like to go up and just have a look at the
He's under some pressure. If the stunt doesn't go right the first time, it will take 4 expensive days to prepare for reshooting.
The jackal, as I recall, was maybe 28, 29 feet high, plaster of Paris, but still incredibly heavy. And they made it, we put big hydraulic air rams on one leg and hinged it at the bottom of it. So we knew exactly the plane that it was going to fall on.
Yeah, it could only fall one way.
It could only fall one way if everything went right. And we had a huge breakaway wall that it broke through. It was your device to get out of that particular trap that you found yourself in.
Done in one take, even though an important cue was mistimed.
Yes, it went too soon. And I mean, that is when you have to think very fast. I was actually hanging down and started going. I should have been actually in my position. So, I mean, stunt people are very fast-thinking people. And in situations like that, you have to think very fast and get it together. We've got sort of lightning reflexes, very sharp minds, and the great combination comes up with the goods.
Harrison, have you ever done anything like this, dragging behind a car?
Dragging behind a car. Dragging behind a car.
All right, roll cameras.
No?
Pick your head up just a little if you can. That's it.
Just one more useless experience.